Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
Your weekend is not complete without the First Lady of New York Radio. It's the Joan Hamburg Show. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Come on and join the Joan Hamburg Show Sunday starting at 2 o'clock. And by the way, just a little reminder, we come to your homes every Sunday starting at 2, so I really would love you to be there. We have great guests from the publishing world, from the world of entertainment. If there's a hot new movie, we have the stars. If there's a Broadway show, we go there too. And we do a lot of features on where you can shop, where you can eat. I share all my adventures with you, and we've got plenty of them, whether you're having a beautiful afternoon tea in a tiny English hotel that you might not even notice, or you're going to follow me to a food hall that, big as it is, has all Asian food, right from Singapore. So we have a lot of adventures, and that's all part of our show. And on Sunday, Reba McEntire, who's the queen of country and an extraordinary singer and actress and star, this woman has sold over 75 million recordings, and she's coming to visit and has stories to tell. I said, when I complain about I'm too busy, I think about Reba McEntire, who's got a new book, who's got a whole retail conglomerate, including a restaurant and a bar. You name it, she's got it. A clothing line, a boot line, new music all the time. And she doesn't complain. She's having a really good time. And we're going to have a good time talking to her. So don't forget, Sunday at 2 o'clock, you want to be there because you want to know all the inside information on the people you love and the people you follow. So come share. I love having you as part of our audience. And I'm Joan Hamburg. And what are you listening to? WABC Radio. There is no better.
The First Lady of New York Radio.
This is Joan Eats.
It was a gray, gloomy day in New York. Not freezing, but just you didn't feel cheerful or happy. So a bunch of us said, let's treat ourselves to afternoon tea at the Whitby Hotel. Do you know that hotel? It's right off Fifth Avenue. It's 2 blocks from Central Park and near the Museum of Modern Art. It is the perfect little English hotel where you can enjoy a real English tea with beautiful china and a fabulous English decor. In fact, Wedgwood was part of the design team. They did the china used at the hotel. The pattern is so spectacular. It's called Sailor's Farewell, and it was lovely. And this hotel, you may not have paid attention to it. It sort of opened quietly in 2017. It's one of 10 properties owned by a London-based group called Firmdale Hotels. They have 2 in New York. The other is the Crosby Street Hotel, and they have a couple in London, including where when my son goes to London, sometimes to work, he stays at Covent Gardens. That's one of theirs. And they have the Soho Hotel, the Dorset Square Hotel, Knightsbridge. They have great hotels in London. And Kit Kemp, who's co-owner and creative director, has designed the interiors. It was like, oh, we forgot how charming and beautiful it is. In fact, I thought, I'm going to buy my daughter, who loves China, a set of this afternoon tea service. The Wedgwood is called the Afternoon Tea Sailor's Farewell, and it's a set for 4, but then I found out how expensive it was, $1,400. It does include a large teapot, beautifully decorated and designed, 4 teacups, 4 sauces, 4 afternoon plates, large sugar bowl, and a large cream. So we didn't buy it necessarily, although if you can afford it, it was quite wonderful. We sat in this charming dining room, had spectacular service, and this wonderful tea, which is served at the Whitby Hotel, 1:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, noon to 5 on the weekends, $65 a person for the special tea. And that tea was so divine. It includes, for the $65, hot scones with clotted cream and preserves, a whole thing of sandwiches, smoked salmon, carnation chicken, cucumber and cream cheese, lovely desserts, Verona chocolate chip mint cupcakes, pumpkin dulce de leche, cranberry kumquat and ginger tartlets, Boss pear and fig cake, and your pitchers of that clotted cream and preserves, and you can have hot chocolate or wonderful teas or coffee. If you want to splurge, you can pay more and have caviar with it, but we were happy just to do that gorgeous afternoon tea. So this is at the Whitby Hotel in the West 50s, right off Fifth Avenue, and the Crosby Hotel downtown serves a similar tea. It will cheer you up and really make you feel good. Plus, it is delicious. So don't forget about it. You can make a reservation, which I would definitely do, at 212-586-5656, or go to opentable.com or call the hotel. Tea at the Whitby. You'll feel like you're in London, honestly, and it is so attractive. And there's a booming bar in there, too. But we passed through the bar and went to this wonderful, bright, charming dining room where they serve this gorgeous tea. And we felt, really, that we were on a little vacation. So treat yourself. Enjoy everything attractive about it, the china, the service, the good-looking people in the hotel. And we'll bring you more treats and ideas to make these gloomy days go by fast. I'm Joan Hamburg, and stay tuned to WABC.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg. Entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome, everyone, to the Joan Hamburg Show, and I have a real treat today. And anytime you say to yourself, oh, I'm too busy, I can't do this, I can't do that, you are going to hear a day in the life of Reba McEntire, who not only is a Grammy Award-winning entertainer and a fabulous country music star, in fact, the queen of country music. So many millions of records sold, over 75 million, and the number keeps going up. And Reba is going to continue her tour, and she's going to headline Madison Square Garden, the Hollywood Bowl. I don't know, and Reba, you've got a restaurant, a bar, and a retail store. How do you do all that? And wait, I'm not even finished. Reba, a Lifetime movie, The Hammer, which is streaming right now, a book coming out in the fall. I cannot believe all this stuff that you're doing, and clothing you're selling at Dillard's, and boots. So you don't have a lot of time on the side, right?
Oh, well, somebody asked me last night, what do I like to do on my spare time? I said, I can reorganize a closet in a heartbeat, but I don't have a lot of free time, but we are very creative, Joan. We like to find projects to do, and especially when COVID hit, it was like, well, we can't do anything with all of us together, so let's start thinking some stuff up and start filling up the funnel again. And then when we are released to be able to go record and work again, we'll be ready. See what comes out the bottom of the funnel. And amazingly enough, a lot of stuff did. So we were busy when quarantines were lifted and doing Big Sky TV show on ABC and the Hammer touring and enjoying life. Just absolutely loving all the fun things we get to do.
And it's great. So you did, through COVID, you just kept on going. Is that right?
Well, what we did during COVID is, no, we weren't working. We were just thinking up stuff to do when COVID was lifted. Everybody was sitting around bored, didn't know what to do. So we just started, my whole team came up with ideas to do. That's where the coffee table book started. We can't do nothing else. Let's write a book. And so it's a coffee table book with all kind of recipes and stories and pictures and funny anecdotes. And I learned a lot on it because they would ask me questions like, what would you do at an outdoor spring party, barbecue? And, well, I didn't have any ideas, so we'd look it up and get ideas from other people. And it was a great learning experience, and it's going to be a cute, fun book to go through.
I'm looking forward to that. Do you cook? Do you like to entertain? Or how do you have time, I should say, to entertain?
Yeah, I do like to entertain. I like to cook. My boyfriend, Rex Lynn, and I, we love to get in the kitchen together and cook, make up new stuff. He's the type of cook that will spend 3 or 4 days, looking for the recipe and then preparing and making a brine and all that kind of stuff. I just throw it together. So we're two different kinds of cooks, so we have fun in the kitchen.
I bet. It sounds good. And where did the clothing come from?
Well, the clothing line started about 18 years ago when we partnered up with Dillard's and started doing clothes, and then got into boots with Justin Boots. I have over 100 pair of boots. So, I love my boots. Thank you. I have over 100 pair in my boot room because I wear boots all year long. I wear boots more than I wear any other kind of footwear.
And it's not uncomfortable to wear them all day when you're on your feet?
No. My boots are very comfortable. They're padded, and I can go all day long with them. I perform in them. I wear them during the day, and just it's you can wear an old pair of boots and look in style, or you can kind of make your outfit look a little more up class and formal if it's a brand new pair of boots. So you're covered.
It sounds good. Well, can you imagine it's been a long journey from the singing McEntires when you kids would get out there and entertain everyone you could.
Yeah, it's been a long, great road. We had fun. Pake, Susie, and I singing together. Alice, our oldest sister, didn't sing with us that much. She was the rodeo cowgirl. Because we were third-generation rodeo kids, grandpap, daddy's daddy, and daddy. And Pake, Alice, and myself, we rodeoed. Susie married a rodeo cowboy, but never rodeoed herself. So us three also sang, played basketball, and just had a really good time being together. And now here we are years later. Susie's still singing, Pake's still singing, and I'm still making a pretty good living out of it myself, so we're having fun.
It sounds good. What did your family do in the rodeo? What did they rope? Was that their thing?
Yes, Daddy and Grandpap were world champion steer ropers. Pake is Pake has won lots of rodeos and steer ropings. Alice was a barrel racer. That was the women's timed event and rodeo. I did a little bit of it. I wasn't as good as Alice. I was more of a contributor, but I sure had fun doing it. And what makes getting to go to Madison Square Garden April 15th, what makes that so special for me is that Daddy performed. He roped calves at Madison Square Garden in 1946 and 1947. So I'm going back, and it's kind of a full circle thing that Alice and Susie are going to get to come up and be with me for that. Pake's busy. He's working. And so we're really thrilled to get to be together in a place where Daddy was years ago and in the same building. So it's going to be fun.
It sounds like it's going to be great. And what's also great, you have the talent, early on, and yet it all started happening with rodeo and everything else. But how did it really happen? How did you even know, or your parents know, that, like you, really had what it takes?
Well, I was the third of four children. I wasn't the oldest, I wasn't the youngest, and I wasn't the only boy. I was the third. So I didn't get the kind of attention I wanted, which is you're trying to always get good attention, not bad attention. But
Right.
The only way I could get good attention is by singing. And so that kind of set me, I guess, apart a little bit. And I always volunteered at all the Christmas programs, Thanksgiving programs, to sing a solo at the programs. And then it just evolved to where we were the singing McEntires. And then I got a job singing the national anthem at the National Finals Rodeo in Oklahoma City in 1974. Mama took me up there and stayed with me for all 9 performances. And Red Steagall was there. He's very famous country western swing singer, cowboy poet. And Mama said, "Can you get my 3 kids in the music business?" He said, "Well, Jackie, I'm just really trying to keep my head above water." He said, "But if you want to bring Reba to Nashville, we could try to get her in, and then she could bring the other 2 in." And so we did that. And Susie was in college, Pake was rodeoing, and they were happy with what they're doing. So I went down to Nashville. Mama took me. We got a recording contract 11 months later.
It's all unbelievable. And that guy was an important influence in your life, right? Introducing you and helping.
Definitely. I just had dinner with him last night here in Scottsdale. We're still very close, great friends, and I just love him with all my heart. And there's no telling where I'd be today if it wasn't for Red Steagall.
No, you never know. Is the rodeo life, in fact, I turned on something the other day and they were doing, which you don't see in New York too often, bull riding. And is the rodeo a good life, an interesting life for families?
Oh, it was the best for families because families rodeoed together, and you'd go to one rodeo this weekend, and the next weekend you're at another rodeo, and you're seeing your same friends because everybody's on the rodeo circuit trying to, make a living out of it. So it was really tough for me to make the transition from rodeo to music business because I didn't know anybody, and I was scared. Why would I want to leave my whole rodeo family for people I don't know? But the best thing Red did for me is he introduced me to wonderful people that I could trust and that would help take care of me. And it was a long time before I got a #1 record, got really established. But because it took so long, I did have a stronger foundation than being a overnight success, which I definitely was not.
Well, that's pretty rare, right? In the country world.
Yeah. Any profession. If you don't make it big, have a #1 record, and on your first 2 or 3 singles, they will
drop you.
Find somebody else that's quicker. It's a faster time now, but that was in the 70s, so it was a slower time. Thank the Lord it was. So I got my education and learned and took notes, and because I didn't know anything about the record business or the music business. We just sang around locally. I thought you have a song on the radio, you get a tour bus, and you're rich. Well,
Right.
that's not the way it happens by any stretch of the imagination. I was still living in a $10 a month rent house in the late 80s. And 1980, I moved into a house with my first husband that really was a big improvement to what we were living in. So it just kept growing. Baby steps is what I had. Nothing large, no big leaps and astronomical things happened. It was just baby steps.
But what gave you the courage to hang on, even though you had to face disappointment and rejection, which we all do along the journey? But it can be discouraging. And as you said, it didn't happen overnight. You had to really pay your dues.
Well, Mama encouraging me, you know, she told me, she said, if you don't want to do this, we'll go home. We don't have to pursue it. She said, but if you do go ahead and this works out, I'll be living all my dreams through you, because Mama didn't get the opportunity that I did. And I said, well, shoot, why didn't you say that in the beginning? Heck yeah, let's go do this sucker. Mm-hmm. And she was with me all the time.
That's great. And what was the first number one record?
The first number one record in 83 was Can't Even Get the Blues. My first single was I Don't Want to Be a One-Night Stand. That was kind of a saying right at the beginning, I'm going to be here for a while, so get ready.
And how long, when you look back, did that take to happen?
Well, I'd say, 75, I signed my contract. 76 was my first single. 83 was my first number one record, and in 84, I won my first female vocalist of the year.
Wow.
That happened for 4 years in a row with 2 Entertainer of the Year awards. So I'd say it took almost a good 10 years to really get your feet in there and get solid.
But you did. And when you have a number one record, is that life-changing, or do you have to constantly prove yourself?
Oh, constantly have to prove yourself. It's life-changing, too. Matter of fact, when I got the news from my manager at the time, Don Williams, that my song had gone number one, we were in a bus garage in DeSoto, Texas, because the front left wheel of our old tour bus was just about to fall off. So there we were in an old greasy bus barn garage somewhere in Texas, and I get the news, you've got a number one record. And I looked up and I said, wow, ain't life glamorous? But, well, you just keep going.
And you did, and you're doing it. And Reba McEntire, a lot of exciting things happening, headlining Madison Square Garden, the Hollywood Bowl. This is really big stuff. I'm very excited for you. I look forward to talking to you when the book comes out and hearing more about your adventures.
Oh, thank you, Joan, so much. Thanks for having me on your program.
I love talking to you. Reba McEntire, let's wait, because we're all going to get tickets, because it's going to be a terrific event in our own backyard. All right, everyone, thank you so much for sharing, Reba. I'm Joan Hamburg, and much more ahead on WABC.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg, entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Get into your body's vitals with the Vitals app on Apple Watch.
I wanna get into my body and let my skin do the talking. I wanna feel like I'm myself again.
The Vitals app tracks key overnight metrics so you can spot changes in your health before you feel them. The Vitals app on Apple Watch. iPhone XS or later required. The Vitals app is for wellness purposes only and not for medical use.
I wanna get into my body.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg, entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome, everyone, to the Joan Hamburg Show, and we have been following the career of a Democratic National Committeeman and partner of ZE Creative Communications, Robert Zimmerman, over this very hectic, crazy year. If you remember, Robert ran against George Santos, who, you don't need me to tell you, this guy lies about everything. In fact, I wonder how he gets through life because he's not real. Everything in his world he has invented, whether it's school, his parents, you name it, everything has been unreal. So I've been very curious to talk to Robert with all the crazy stuff going on, not only elections where some of the candidates are so questionable, but everything, balloons flying in the air, horrible people running for public office. It's all there. Train wrecks, transportation wrecks that are horrible all over the place. So Robert Zimmerman, as someone who has been involved politically on and off for a very long time, was there any lesson to learn from the latest race? You've certainly had a big adventure.
Well, out of this travesty that has, and this fraud and crime that's been perpetrated on the people of our congressional district, the 3rd District, Nassau and Queens, and a crime that's been perpetrated on the state of New York by having this individual, George Santos, emerge in Congress. Out of this travesty, there's a lot of lessons that can be learned. And I think that's so important. First and foremost to me is the urgency of everyone investing in local media, standing up and supporting local media, whether it's your weekly newspapers, your daily newspapers, your local radio and TV stations, because they're the front lines in our democracy. They're the front lines in our defense of our democracy. We tried to sound the alarm on many of the issues about George Santos. We didn't have all of it. A local congressional campaign can't send a crew to Brazil to look into his background or hire a genealogist. But there were many questions and many important issues we tried to raise. In fact, there were many lies that we exposed. But the reality is, because our media, our big media markets are so short-staffed and there's so many races for them to cover, the marquee races get attention and the local races don't get attention. And so our local media, Blank Slate Media, certainly North Shore Leader and Newsday, raised a number of these issues, but they weren't picked up by a larger market. So to me, I think the stronger our local media is, the stronger our front lines of defense are in holding our elected officials and our candidates accountable. That's I think, a very important lesson to be learned, because even when we raise these issues and try to get the media to dig in deeper, the larger media just frankly said they didn't have the personnel, the money, or the staff to do it.
Right.
And so that's why I think it's a very important lesson. I think another important lesson to be learned is the urgency of everyone to vote for the individual. And I'm a proud Democrat, but I don't believe we should be just voting party lines. We had a Republican landslide in New York State that cost us 4 congressional districts, including the one I was running in, and many state legislative races. A lot of folks went to the booth and didn't even know who was running for the top of the ticket, but below the top of the ticket. So I think it's very important that people look at the candidates individually and ask questions. And I hope we go back to that time pre-COVID where we had civic groups having candidates nights, and we had forums and debates constantly taking place, because the more public scrutiny, the stronger our democratic process is. And frankly, in the race I was in, my opponent, George Santos, his strategy was to avoid the editorial boards, wouldn't appear in front of editorial boards. He debated me twice and refused to show up for any more debates. And in fact, his whole strategy was to work the Republican base and ironically try to be the law and order candidate. Isn't that ironic? Work the Republican base and hope for a Republican landslide. And that's what took place, and that's what put him over the top. Yeah. And so I think scrutinizing, voters looking at the candidates, having more, going back to the days where we had more community debates and more civic meetings where we interviewed the candidates, is a very important step to take. And if candidates won't show up for these events, that should be very revealing to you.
Right.
So I think those are important lessons to learn as we go forward.
Without question. And it's fascinating that he obviously thought that no one was going to look into him, and exaggerated from the beginning.
It's so true, and he's run twice for Congress. The local Republicans never looked into his background or validated his resume. The Democrat he ran against 2 years ago never did opposition research on him. And in fact, the Democrat won in a big Democratic year, didn't have to bother. And the only time there was any opposition research done was by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee when I ran against them. And we didn't have the full story from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. It's hard to imagine someone fictionalizing their entire life, but there was enough there to sound the alarm. And so but your point's very well taken, that there was not the scrutiny even by the local political party, by the local Republican Party. Ran for Congress twice. So that's why it's so important to have that public scrutiny of candidates.
Without question, but how are the Republicans going to deal with him now? There's a handful who would love to get rid of him, but it doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, I must tell you, one of the highlights and one of the good pieces of news emerging from this travesty is watching this incredible bipartisan coalition emerge in our congressional district in Nassau and Queens County, in the borough of Queens and Nassau County. We have rallies with 200 people attending, midday rallies attracting 200 people at a time. We have petitions being circulated by different organizations getting thousands of signatures. There's a bipartisan coming together, Democrats and Republicans alike, standing up and saying we've got to protect the integrity of our democracy. We've got to demand accountability, not just of George Santos and call for his expulsion, but also holding the Republicans accountable who will not call for his expulsion from Congress. With all the crimes Santos has already acknowledged and all the other crimes that have been revealed and the frauds that have been acknowledged and the lies that George Santos has actually told, with all that being said, there are still many Republicans in Congress who've refused to call for his ouster. Yeah. And they are, in fact, the Republican leadership who've refused to step up. They're accomplices to his crimes, and they've got to be held accountable too.
Has this all been a turnoff for you? I mean, you who have...
I must tell you, Joan, we know each other a long time. I've been a guest on your show for many years, and I've always taken such pride in our democratic process. It was the honor of my life to be the Democratic nominee for Congress. And this was quite a year, you know. They changed the district on us twice.
Awful, yeah.
And then they moved the primary was moved from June to the end of August. So they cut off the general election by 2 months. We had a total of 10 weeks for the general election, which was very tough. So this was an arduous year, plus changing the district from what was a Democratic-leaning seat to what was ultimately a seat that the Republicans won for governor on down in the landslide. So it was a tough year. But that being said, it was the honor of my life to run. I believe deeply in the role of I believe deeply in our democracy. It's a passion of mine. It inspires me. And the role of Congress has never been more important. Never been more important, both in terms of protecting our democracy, standing up for our rights as citizens, and most of all, being of service to our district. You know, people fail to realize it's not just the crimes that George Santos has committed that are really scandalous. It's the fact that he's incapable of serving as a congressman. He's not on any committees. He literally is like he's like on the lam, as they say in the movies. He's like a fugitive from the law. No one ever sees him in the district. No one knows where he lives. Whenever he's in Washington, he's always running away from the press. And so, as a result, I'm getting phone calls from constituents, the people I know over the years, who ask me for help with issues pertaining to Social Security checks, veterans assistance. And we sort of all are trying to pitch in, because of my background in congressional affairs, to help people. Local villages who need infrastructure funds, town governments that need assistance for road repair. You know, a member of Congress plays a very pivotal role in terms of bringing dollars back to our district to protect our property values, protect our water quality, protect our roads, infrastructure needs, and also plays a very pivotal role in standing up for citizens who don't have a voice. So members of Congress are pitching in to help the district. I'm pitching, and we're all doing our best to try to provide some sort of support for our constituents, our citizens in this district, because our congressman is totally checked out.
Right, and they're not getting rid of him, or they talk it, but
I believe he will be expelled. I think what's going to happen is when the indictments come down, and there will be certainly indictments, and he's already acknowledged crimes, by the way. On top of that, it'll be too big for the Republicans to ignore. And at one point, there'll be enough Republicans in the House saying to Kevin McCarthy, this is unacceptable. I can't defend it anymore back in my district. And I believe as a result, there'll be either through the indictments that he'll face or through the political pressure to remove him because of his crimes. I believe ultimately he will be expelled. He'll be removed from Congress either through resignation or through expulsion.
Well, that will be very interesting. If
yeah,
that
it really
happens.
will be. It takes 2/3 of the House chamber to remove a member of Congress. Already one half, the Democrats and I believe now 10 Republicans, have committed to his expulsion. So then it becomes a question of when will the rest of the Republicans, and I think it's building, because every day there's another scandal breaking. Every day there's another crime being discovered. There's another lie being discovered. And for many of these Republicans, they don't want to go home to their district and have to defend why they're supporting George Santos. They want to talk about what they're doing in the district.
Of course, as always.
And that's why I think the pressure is going to build on them to ultimately remove him. And I would say we should all be contacting our local members of Congress.
To get rid
all
of them.
All of your listeners. If your member of Congress has not demanded that this criminal and this fraudster be removed, call your member of Congress and make it clear. This is about making sure New York has a voice in Congress, which we don't have now, and making sure that we stand up against public corruption. That's the first obligation of every public official, and we should demand that be done.
Well, without question, there's no reason that we have to accept this and get the bottom of the pot.
That's exactly right.
Right, who despite lie after lie after lie says, I'm still going on.
Oh, yeah. Look, Santos finally has a job that gives him health insurance. He's not going to leave on his own. He's a sociopath. He has no shame.
Well, he swears that he's not going to leave at all. I thought that lying on the animal charity, you know how crazy animal people are in a good way.
I'm the same way. But you're dealing with a person who has no shame. He's a sociopath. He's not going to resign. He's never had a job before that paid him this, pays him and gives him health care. But the public pressure will be the difference.
So
calling
with
upon
all
members
this,
of Congress, calling on members of Congress like Nicole Maliotakis from Staten Island and Brooklyn, who has not called for George Santos's removal from Congress, not called for his expulsion. She has an obligation to make sure New York has strong voices fighting for it right now, and we don't, certainly with George Santos in Congress. And to the credit of there are many Republicans who've called for his expulsion, and we have to call upon those Republicans like Nicole Maliotakis to make sure they stand up and speak out too. And because standing up to public corruption should be the first obligation of every public official.
Without question. So someone like you, who has been involved politically, not running for office until now, but really believed in the American dream and all the possibilities, is this not a turnoff that this has happened and seems to continue happening?
Look, I'm not going to kid you. It is sad and it is frustrating. And we did our very best to sound the alarm on him. And in a year where the governor's race and the issue of crime dominated the discussion, and the marquee races, of course, dominated the headline, it's certainly sad and frustrating. But, all the more reason to stand up stronger. Our democracy's faced worse challenges than George Santos. Our nation has faced worse challenges than George Santos. And we can't let an individual like that discourage us from participating, standing up for what we believe in, believing in our country and our institutions. And fortunately, we have a system in place where we can make the changes to restore our democracy and restore our voice in Washington. We just have we have to have the courage and commitment to make sure that we make those changes. So that's what I'm committed to doing. I'm giving it my all to make sure that he is removed from Congress. And it's not because what we're facing right now, Joan, it's so much bigger than my dreams and aspirations. Right now, it's about standing up to a crime that was committed in our congressional district, a fraud perpetrated on the voters. Everything about this individual proved to be a lie. His biography, his resume, he's acknowledged committing crimes. It's all been documented, and there's more that's being revealed every day. So it's important. I'm encouraged by seeing Democrats and Republicans come together with that commitment. We can have our differences as Democrats and Republicans. That's healthy and good. But we should always be able to have confidence in the integrity of our public officials. And when they show themselves to be criminals and frauds, we have to demand that they be removed. And that's my mission right now.
All right. And that makes us want to look behind some of the other candidates because...
Let me tell you.
Who can you believe, right?
Well, you know something? It's imperative for all of us by supporting our local media so they have the capacity to investigate. And it's incumbent upon all of us as voters not to vote the party line, but look at our candidates. Make sure that we know who we're voting for. I think that's going to be, just don't believe the rhetoric. Look at the credentials. That's, I think, an important lesson from this experience. And most of all, to vote and stand up for a democracy, because we don't stand up for a democracy and don't participate, we open the door to more corruption.
Well,
so I think we can turn this around, and it's certainly the cause and mission of my life.
Right. Well, you've got a lot of courage and a lot of belief, and that's what we need. Robert Zimmerman.
Always great to be with you. Thank you, John.
And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
I'm Joan Hamburg, and you're listening to WABC. And you're hearing the story behind the story and what has been going on. So don't go away. Stay tuned. There's lots more.
The First Lady of New York Radio.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
This is Ask Joan.
One of my treats every year is to go to the Orchid Show, part of the New York Botanical Garden. It's been happening for 20 years. And even though we've had spring-like weather, it's so nice when it's gray like it is this time of year to go to the Enid Haupt Conservatory at the Botanic Garden and seeing these incredible orchids, thousands of them in full bloom. It says spring. And this year's show is called Natural Heritage, and it actually has famous landscape artist Lily Kwong as the guest designer. And it talks about the healing power of the natural world through flowers and heritage. And you are surrounded with these thousands of glorious orchids, and they become totally part of nature amidst a picture-perfect beauty. And Lily was a former student at their adult education program, and her works are an intersection between landscape, wellness, and art. Now, it opened this weekend, and it runs through April 23rd. Tickets are on sale at the Botanic Gardens or nybg.org. They're $35 for adults, $31 for students, and older people, $15 for kids, 2 to 12. And the tickets not only include the show, but they include a tram tour. And they have something interesting. Orchid Night is Saturday evenings from 7 to 10. And if you're 21 years or older, it's a party. Cocktails, music, food, and more. So you've got these breathtaking orchids. You've got a party, literally. And check it out. You're really going to love it. Tickets for the whole evening are $39, and they can be purchased at nybg.org/orchid tickets. So you got it, nybg.org/orchid tickets. And it's really something charming to do. And you've got the whole night for a reasonable amount. And it's an interesting way to meet people, too. I'm Joan Hamburg.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg. Entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ARTS. Just go to Indeed.com/ARTS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.